Raz was, I call him Raz, kind of pulling incognito in the parking lot before, and I see him walking around. He's pacing. I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to set him up. So we're on the phone. I was like, hold on one sec. And I kind of like mute my mic so he doesn't hear the door close. And I was like, hey, turn around. And he sees me, and it's just a big hug.
Welcome back to the Triple J Sports Podcast for episode 2 with our guest today, Amir Carraway. Want to make sure I introduce Amir and who he is properly. Tried to do it in studio, had a little delay on our camera pickup, so I'm going to do it here and set the stage before we dive into the episode. Amir is a kid, grew up in the Bay Area, moved to Sacramento, went to high school in Franklin, and had a great high school career, and then ended up over at Chico State, where he and I connected as we were working together. I was an assistant on the staff under head coach Greg Clink, who I played for at UC Davis. And so Amir and I formed a great relationship, got to work closely with him and be a part of a team that set the stage for where Chico State is today, one of the first program teams, within the program to win the CC2A conference and then go on to the NCAA tournament. It was super awesome. You hear a lot of names in the episode from Gus Arginal, who was a teammate and a coach that I've known for years during my time at UC Davis, as well as Coach Greg Clink, also an assistant of mine at UC Davis, and then I worked for him at Chico State, among other guys. So a lot of history, but where Amir is today, he finished his career and he was super successful Chico, all-conference player, a lot of accolades, ended up going overseas and having a pro career that he just really hung up the shoes just a few years ago, and is now full-time entrepreneur, businessman, and is giving back to the basketball community as well. So he's the publishing director at a local magazine here in the Natomas area, and he's continuing to grow that, doing very, very well. He's also a high school basketball coach out in the Elk Grove area, as well as an AAU coach, and he's working also with youth on a skill and development training program that he's up and coming. So we'll dive into all those things. There's a lot to talk about and unpack with Amir, and somebody that I certainly expect and hope will continue to be a regular contributor into different topics of the agenda of show, ideas and things that we're hoping to bring to you. So my pleasure to introduce him to you, and I hope you all enjoy the episode. All right, we're back for episode 2 here, and I'm with my main man, Amir Carraway. Dude, welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, Raz? Thanks for having me, man.
Before we head into all of his accomplishments and success, I want to kind of start with, what are you doing today, man? What's the current status, and what are you up to?
Yeah, typical AAU weekend. Got my team up this morning. We had 2 games. Unfortunately, we had 2 losses, so we like to call them lessons. Finished that up, trained one individual today, worked on some pull-up jumpers. But, typical day for me, I get up, I start my business early. We'll train 2 or 3 guys for 2 segments, 2 hours. Come in during the day where I'm a publishing director for a local magazine here in Natomas that involves a lot of client relationship and seeking, advertisement and sponsorship opportunities. About midday, about 3 o'clock, I kind of switch back into trainer mode, and I'm back in the gym till about 10. So
you're blending the business and the sports life. So you're coaching kids. What age group are you coaching right now?
Yeah. So today we had our 12U group. I train as young as 9, and I have one client that's older than me. It's a couple years older than me. So the range is pretty wide.
Oh, that's awesome. How are you liking being in that training space? Is that an adjustment? Is it something you're really enjoying?
Yeah, not gonna lie, I love it. I stepped away from basketball back in 2021. We still were coming out of COVID. I was very excited about that new chapter and leaving basketball behind. And, it's probably a year to the day. I found myself in a gym every day, just kind of helping out. And here I am back doing what I love, and it's been memorable. I'm able to, with the younger clients that I serve, I have flashbacks when I was their age and kind of the lessons I learned along the way. And so that kind of helps me with the training because I really try to break it down specifically for them to interpret it and understand it. But every day it's great because it's a new challenge. I'm out here being a value add, getting someone else better. And so now I get to live vicariously through them. So
keeping the game of basketball as a part of your life while tackling business. So you're the director of publishing and the publishing director at the Natomas Local. That's the name currently, right?
That is correct. We were an old company before. Been around since April 2021. That's when I officially hung it up. And it's just typically a hyperlocal magazine. So the residents that live there provide the content, and local businesses that not only live in that community but serve that community as well try to look to kind of enhance relationships, and they do some of that through advertising. So it's been a fun ride. Gotten to know everybody in the area. Come from Elk Grove, but now I'm in Natomas, and I see similar parallels. Just an up and coming, subsidiary of Sacramento. Plenty of diversity and just really cool people in the area. So it's been fun to just kind of get to know everybody, and just kind of in my natural skill set of connecting people. It just seems like, somebody's one call away, and we're all, just trying to do something positive and something fun, locally. So it's a really cool tool we've all used and in some ways come together with. And it's just been a fun ride.
That's really, really cool to see you, and for me, it's an awesome experience having, had our relationship, really take hold during, that player-coach relationship, and to see you just having the success and essentially displaying the same characteristics that I saw in you as a player. And I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned Elk Grove, and that's where you had your high school career and played at Franklin High School before you took off. So tell us a little bit about that background, kind of what at Franklin and your high school career that you remember most as, the student athlete that, was building a foundation that led you to the Chico State experience, which I want to get into after that.
Yeah, being a Franklin Wildcat, Bob Bogowski was the original varsity coach there and had really established a nice program. Franklin at that time had only been, 3-4 year school in existence. Some of the local kids from, I guess, the Laguna Creek area and maybe even the Valley area originally transferred in. But, this is 03 where a lot of the families from the Bay Area as well as other places are now, trying to find a place to settle, maybe a little bit cheaper place to live. But we have all of these new cultures coming in. And by my sophomore year, Coach Formaker, had made the change and came up to Elk Grove. He had taken Hayward High to the section championships, I think, the year before. And the culture just continued. As it sits, I could think of, Franklin basketball alone, more than, a dozen D1 athletes. We had 2 guys play on like NBA training camp rosters, and even in the preseason, plenty of overseas players still playing. I think there's probably 4 or 5 actively. And that's a fun school. I'll always be thankful for my time at Franklin, and even the teachers and the administrators there. I felt like their goal was to help get us out and help, kind of prepare us for that next step. And just that whole community, Elk Grove Unified was really good to me.
That's a good baseline for any success going forward, right? Is having that foundation and coaches that are, helping you. Let's face it, when you're in high school, you're pretty much a knucklehead for the majority of the time, right? Yeah. And but you had a lot of success. I mean, I was looking at some of the stuff, on your awards list, and we had so many things in common, from the Optimist All-Star Game out here, and all the kind of common things that a successful soon-to-be college athlete, especially basketball, has in the Sacramento area. One of the things that's hard anytime you're going through that process, right, is that, getting recruited, finding the right school, ending up at the right fit that, those that know me know kind of my background and kind of how it went through. But I didn't connect with you till you already committed to Chico. So I'd love to have you kind of share how you ended up at Chico, who recruited you. I probably know, most of the individuals that were involved. So I'd love to hear you tell that story as far as how you ended up at Chico State.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. My junior year was I had a great summer. I was coming into my own. I had just started getting Division I interest, and just to fast forward, come season time, I break my foot in the foundation game of my senior year. Ryan Sipkins, one of my running mates and founder of Touch Shooting, where I'm at now, had to hold our team on by a thread, the whole season. And so, I ended up breaking my fifth metatarsal. I think I came back 2 games before playoffs. And, at that time we were kind of sneaking in the gym, kind of getting ready to get going because, again, we were, preseason. I think Ryan and I were top 5 players to watch in the area. Again, that Division I interest was just starting to take fruition. And when I got cleared to play, it was go time. We had state championship aspirations, and I can't even remember the first team we had played, but I hit the ground running. I think in my 3rd game is when I got the call from Chico State. But to my knowledge, I know San Francisco State had recruited me heavily, before the season had began. We had Stanislaus, Sonoma State, Dominguez Hills, Cal State, not Maritime, but the one in Marin, Dominican University.
Dominican, yeah.
And that was a great visit. I really enjoyed it there. But something about Chico State when I went on my visit, shout outs to Coach Fred. Coach Fred, a Chico State alum, had organized, these summer workouts with college and pro guys. And I believe only about a handful of high schoolers made it. I know I was like one of 3 that continuously, was allowed to come back into the gym. If you didn't bring it, you couldn't come back. And so, there'd be a guy at the door and they'd ask you, what's your name? And you'd have to go down the list. Coach Fred actually showed it to me this year. You had to go down the list and, if you weren't it, your name would be crossed out and it's time to go home. But going to that Chico State visit, I saw, Zach Graves, Rod Hawkins, who was a stud at Jesuit High School, Jay Flores, the same at Jesuit, and Ethan Stone at the time had played on my AU team 2 years prior. And so, I remember Jay, and I remember this other point guard who was very talented. I was going to come in as a forward. And so, I just saw something there, as well as a couple familiar faces in the Sacramento area that I knew. And, I thought basketball-wise, that would be like my best fit. But more importantly, Coach Clink, head coach at Chico State, promised me 2 things. One, that I would graduate, and 2, he would, absolutely push me. And so, my 2 questions on all my visits were, do you have a shooting machine? Because that, I did not excel as a shooter coming out of high school. I, mainly was athletic and, played around the basket. And then 2, what was the pathway for overseas guys through your program? And so I always had a plan of where I wanted to go. And when it came down to it, I kind of just picked the school that best aligned with that, where I actually had a chance to win. I also had a chance to play and just have the ultimate experience.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And we obviously shared the experience of both playing for Coach Clink.
Yeah.
He was the one of the main assistants and really my closest connection when I played at UC Davis. He knows this. We talked about it. One of the reasons that during my toughest times there that I was able to kind of overcome and find my way to the success that I enjoyed, and going and working for him and being an assistant was just an easy, natural fit.
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of hear your take on what he told you as far as what he promised you. That fits everything I know about him, but I think the fact that he's genuine in his commitment to not only developing guys on a athletic basketball level, but really committing to the kind of character and person you're going to be, resonates, because you hear that a lot from coaches, but
100%.
he legit means it, and
Yeah.
he backs up what he says more than anything, and was a big part of that too, just the belief and the trust that what you were going to get from Coach Clink was something that you felt like you could believe in.
Just to take it back, Gus Arginal was definitely the lead recruiter in my recruitment at Chico, and I thought he was just super, charismatic. Super
Gus is
chill.
my guy, man.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Coach Arginal. Final Four appearance this year.
That's right.
He's killing it, man. But he just, overall wanted me to feel comfortable when I got to Chico, and as I met Coach Clink, they were already, warming me up to redshirting, and I understood it. Coach Clink came off as a pretty cool guy, and in terms of character, if you and I were to go up to Chico now, we wouldn't sit down for more than 2 minutes without the coaching staff greeting us as well as the players. And I always thought I was a pretty good sense of community guy, and took pride of not only just team morale, but I think Coach Clink just overall paints that just full picture of what it's like to be a man, a man of pride, a man of, your sense of loyalty to your program, a sense of loyalty of what you do. And, so many times, subconsciously and consciously, I think he was just a walking, talking lesson for just all of us. And so, I had to shout him out. Maybe my second year overseas, I'd find myself in different basketball situations where, I don't know, I could have been messing up, or we might have needed to talk to the team at that time, and I had Coach Clink just in my ear, just from all of the lessons I learned over
that voice in the head, right?
Yeah. And, it came down to it, I felt like there was a sound bite for every single thing that I did. And eventually I texted him, and I told him, I said, you could be an overseas coach. Like, you definitely have it. And then second, I just thanked him, because every single situation that I've had to have, on the court and even off, I've had some sort of advice from Coach Clink. So
that point about the voice in the head is funny. I just had this conversation. I think that translates to parenting and when you're an athlete, when you're a kid and you're trying to just get through the moment, right? The game, the practice, you don't always necessarily process what a coach is delivering to you or parents delivering to you in that moment and go, thanks for what you said. I totally am going to follow what you're saying. Right. And that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Either you ignore it, clap back, there's all sorts of stuff. But when the time comes and you're on your own, it's that head space conversation where you hear their voice telling you what you should do.
Yeah.
That helps you make that decision or know, hey, this is what I should do. That, it's the reason you kind of have to repeat yourself as a parent like 200 times to say the same thing, hoping that when they're on their own,
right,
they'll do the right thing.
Yeah.
But as a player, when you see somebody that repeatedly stays consistent, Coach Clink's consistent in that working with him, when there was fun, because you mentioned Coach Arginal and Gus and I have a really unique relationship in that he and I worked together in a variety of capacities. He was a senior my first year at Davis when I transferred, so we played together as teammates, and then he came back as a senior, or my senior year, he came back as an assistant. So he was both a teammate, then he was an assistant that I worked with. So we were close in that point.
Yeah.
And then he was a big part of, along with Coach Clink, what brought me to Chico coaching. So when you say he's charismatic and a guy that very much would draw you to recruit him, I totally can picture it. And he was a big part of that culture being built over there at Chico with Coach Clink as well. So you end up there your first couple of years, like you said, you redshirted and got ready. And then I ended up joining the staff with Coach Clink when Coach Arginal left in 2011.
Yes.
And that's where we really got connected. And I actually remember going back to the first time I saw you in the gym shooting and working out, and immediately wanting to start working with you and be actively in the gym and help develop you, because I saw the talent. But would love to have you, especially talking about the success we had. There was CC2A titles, NCAA tournament appearances that has since gone on. So you were part of that first group along with Jay Flores and DeMario Sims and all those guys that really put Chico in the stratosphere that it's been since.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure for me to go on that ride with you guys. But during that time, what would you say was the biggest takeaway for you while you were at Chico with that group? A great group of guys, a great head coach, and a staff that really mirrored that, and that certainly catapulted you onto a professional career. But what was the biggest for you lesson or lessons that you kind of take forward with you today?
Yeah, in one word, I would probably say culture. Starting from the top, Coach Clink, I heard in his interview, he rips off his dress shirt and he has his 1993 championship Chico State shirt on. And it's like, that's a big risk right there. But, coming from the head of the snake, like, hey, I take pride in the school I go to. He recruited great individuals, shout outs to DeMario Sims, Terrence Pelham, Rashad Parker, Sean Park. Those are my guys. But, we all came into practice, working hard. The intensity was up. We didn't condition, surprisingly. Most kids are, we were in the weight room, but we were never on the track. Like, we played, we practiced, we prepared top notch, and it translated right away to the games. And so, going back to just my first year, we used to take tallies of wins when we did our open gyms. You'd be assigned to a team for the day. And my freshman year, just humble as ever, I was at the bottom of that list. And so, for me, mixing business with basketball, I always learn, the greatest leaders, start at the bottom, or even in terms of respect, you give the janitor the same respect you give the CEO. And seeing myself at the bottom, I said, hey, I got to figure out how to win. And so being dead last, my goal, micromanaging my goal was to win twice per day. We'd probably play 8 games, maybe 10 games of open run, and my goal was to win twice. And once I started hitting that goal.
Not a great winning percentage, but it's a start.
Not at all. Not at all. But, I mean, I can't remember the numbers now, but the average was basically winning once a day. So I already knew, hey, you can't keep doing that. That's the same thing. We got to change that. So let's just go to 2. So 2 turn to 4, 4 turn to 5. I didn't get it my first year, but I think coming in that sophomore year when you arrived, it was like, hey, we all start at 0. And so, just intentionally having that mindset to being that top guy. And you remember in the coach's office, we used to take tallies of who would work out on their own extra. And so, I saw some guys come in and just do mic-ins, and I felt the type of way about that. But it was like, no, I'm going to show you guys not only that, I'm a jokester and, I'm an easygoing guy, but I also put in the work. And so, that was another competition there. And that competition came, during the season. Who's going to start at the 4 spot? I back up Rod Hawkins as a freshman who's an all-conference player. And, even in my exit interviews, they were like, look at our recruiting class. Look what we have under you. It's all at your position. So what are you going to do this summer? And, I worked that summer like a madman to, not give it to chance. I have an opportunity. I'm going to take it. And so, fast forward into the season, we start working together, developing, you're helping me with my jump shot. You're helping me see what contested jump shots look like. Before the game, we had our own thing, in pre-games. And then we go out and I think it was like 21-12, my first game as a starter. And I think I got Wildcat of the week. And then, we go and play those D1 games and I have similar success. And, I just see it on the big stage of like, hey, if I can do this against Division I players, what's to say what your career is going to look like if you remain at D2? And so right then and there, I started the leadership there, leading as an example, not necessarily a voice. And just every day we kind of hacked at it. And like you said, in the Clink era, we were the first team to win a CCAA championship. The following year, we were the first team to win an NCAA tournament game. And the following year after that, we were the first team to win a Western Regional championship. And so kind of how I coach and how I train is let's see where we're at, right? And then we're just going to build brick by brick and go from there.
Well, there is a lot to unpack in the Chico era. Obviously, we spent a lot of time there, and so I want to specifically, quote unquote, give you your flowers as far as what I saw, from the get go. But for me to talk about what I remember in seeing in you, and I remember coming in to start coaching in the program, and shout out Chris Cobb, who's been doing his thing. Yeah, Cobby, what's up, man? And Coach Clink, and kind of stepping into to try to fill what Gus and Coach Arsenal had been doing, and knowing that the foundation of the program was there. Before I ever started, I knew culturally what existed. and saw the leadership that was already in place with guys like Jay and DeMaro, and you guys had a good group. So for me, I was definitely looking for an opportunity to share the knowledge and the coaching that I got early in my career from John Welch, which I was fortunate enough to have him for a year. I wish I'd had him, in my ear coaching me, for 5 years of my college career, because he taught me so much as far as one-on-one and how to get better. And I always was not only grateful for it, but it was like I saw myself get better. So it was the opportunity to start trying to share that with others that I felt really motivated to do.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing you in the gym and saw the skill set and the potential and the talent, but more than anything, I saw the drive and I saw the desire to get better. And we were having a conversation last couple of days about being around know-it-alls, kids that don't want to be coached and don't really want to be corrected and all that. And you had none of that. You were just like, I remember being a sponge, like you wanted to take anything and everything to get better. And, we were in the gym just a couple times, and I remember leaving the gym, I think after our first workout together, and being like, dude, you're going to be special. Like, I remember walking in and telling Clink and Cobb that, like, that's our starting four, and that's going to be the guy he's going to be one of our best players. And you hadn't turned that corner yet, from your first year as far as demonstrating it.
Mm-hmm.
But what you did in the first game was exactly a product of that workload. And so big part of the dynamic with our relationship that was fun is that we connected, and it was exactly what I was looking for in college. I love a lot of parts about coaching, but being able to share that with someone and having somebody want to absorb it was a big piece. When you look at your evolution in your career, you got better from freshman to sophomore in the kind of ways that every coach wants, right? Where you can see he's in the lab, he's in the gym, he's developing. What was the mindset that, if you were sharing with kids and you're sharing with kids right now as a coach, what's the mindset that you attribute to that? Is there a specific way of thinking about it, or just a love of the game? What is it that really helped you do that?
Well, two things come to mind. First one, Kobe Bryant, Mamba mentality. The player we leave the season on is the player we are. How do I come back into the next year better? What are my flaws? Just being honest with yourself, and that alone takes a lot of just awareness, but it really, when you peel that onion back, are you ready to really look at yourself in the mirror to see what you're good at and what you aren't? And so, I had that going into that sophomore year of just, I had a Jordan Simple, Nate Appel, Jordan Barton, phenomenal high school players coming out and then coming into college on my back. And, what am I good at? What are they saying I don't do?
So with all that, what was the mentality that you attributed to your success and your development, and specifically as a coach now, what do you share with kids to kind of translate the idea of getting better day in, day out, year to year?
Yeah, overall, I would just say self-awareness. I think of Kobe and the Mamba mentality. How do I come into the next season a different player, a better player, a more improved player? What are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? Looking at my sophomore year, I think the number one thing I got comfortable with was shooting. And then my junior year, I can fast forward into when we played Western Washington. I believe we played them our sophomore year, but I kind of was a one-trick pony. If it was catch and shoot, I had it, but could I put the ball down on the floor? And so, that off season, I really worked on not only 1 and 2 dribble pull-ups, but scoring from off the dribble, being comfortable having the ball in my hands. And, just really to keep it basic for kids is just pick one thing to work on. I think a lot of times, even, as trainers, a lot of guys want to work on 20 different things, 10 different things in a workout. And it's cool. You'll get, the 2 to 3 minutes better in those 10 aspects that you were when you work on it. But why not just stick to 2 things, maybe 1 thing, maybe 3 things.
And master them.
And so, today I was doing a workout with a guy, and we just worked on a 1 dribble pull-up, and I put him in 7, 8 different situations. And I look at the time, and we worked on 1 dribble pull-up going right on the move, static, off of a forward left pivot, a forward left pivot with the ball and a jab, And it all finished with that one dribble pull up. And, you know, I had a moment even in that training. It was like, oh, I did want to do, you know, some actions we had just worked on the day before, but let's just stay in this because you're getting comfortable as time went on, you know, 30, 35 minutes into the workout. The guy went from shooting, you know, maybe 33% in his shots with no defense to like 75. And it's like, hey, there's something here. Let's now lock into the work. And, you know, just reflecting on that as a player, you know, that's what I would do. Shout outs to Natasha Smith. At that time, she was the coach at Cal State Dominguez Hills. But every summer at Chico, I would go down and stay with my dad, and I would just be in gyms in L.A., all throughout L.A., all day, all night. And, you know, Tosh would open up the gym, sometimes literally open the gym, you know, hey, that's the ball rack. Do you need any extra balls? And then leave me. And, you know, I created a swish workout where instead of getting, you know, shots up on the right side and going 10 makes, it's got to be 10 swishes. And so, you know, looking at my phone after those workouts, you know, 4 hours would go by. But that was like the daily grind. And I would send, you know, video clips to Coach Clink. One comes up where that I think of, I was doing, you know, a couple dribble moves, attacking through a cone into a dribble pullout with Coach Rob at Laguna Creek, where there'd probably be a handful of us working on footwork and just, you know, one-on-one moves. But those daily deposits of, hey, I'm going to put in high-level work. I'm going to focus on a group, and I'm going to stick with it and be consistent with it. You know, those seeds planted led to that seed now, you know, sprouting and growing. And it led to further success down the line.
See, I hearing you describe it is definitely interesting to, you know, enter into your mindset, you know, especially in a reflective state, right? It's been a decade. I look at it and I would say that your willingness to get very, you know, on like a microeconomic level, right?
Yeah.
To focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And not lose focus is a key skill set and commitment. And I mean, going back to what I remember seeing, your ball handling and your comfort level with being in like a fluid, dynamic live situation, you weren't all the way there yet.
Yeah.
And I actually related to that because I was very much catch and shoot, play off of a square up, not as great off the live dribble early on. And knowing that in the game, the simpler you make it, the less mistakes you make and the more consistency you can build. And so your willingness to, I remember kind of your first year there and our second year together, it was catch and shoot. It was getting your form right so that your percentage and your consistency was great. And then it was, you know, in the post, it was one dribble, simple moves, right? Not getting complicated because there really isn't a need to, and one dribble pull-ups. And then, you know, watching you master those, and you were able to progress and start to expand. But so many kids today and athletes try to want to cover it all like you're talking about, but also aren't recognizing that the game is about the minor details and really mastering those. So I was drawn to your passion for that and the recognition. And I can remember, you know, a quick story on this. I remember having the conversation with Coach Cobb and Coach Clink, and the beauty of coming into the program, you know, after your first year is, right, I have no backstory, no history, no preset, you know, kind of assumption about what you are or you aren't, any of you guys. And so you were a blank slate to me. And I remember, you know, coming in and watching you shoot and watching your consistency. And at that time, you really weren't a green light to shoot guy. So I remember going into our first couple of games, we had been putting in the work, and during the practices, Coach Clink and Coach Cobb and we were having conversations about what your, you know, green light to shoot was. And I was like, let him shoot on catch and shoot, any of it. And there was that hesitation, which I, you know, based on your prior performance, right, was reasonable. But I remember those first couple of games sitting on the bench and being like, go in, and you were drilling them, and it was like, dude, we're off and running, man. But you would put the work in, and you had done it. Everything that you did in those games was a product of that attitude, that mindset, and the willingness to not be in the gym playing hang dribbles and doing all the other things. And, you know, I think, you know, that translates into life in the same way. If you take anything that you're doing in life on a business front, in a you know, personal situation, really is breaking it down into segments that you can master.
Yeah.
And, I see that, and when we talk and have conversations, I see that in how you operate now.
Yeah.
Would you say that for you try to create that? Like, you take any project and try to break it down into, kind of micro goals within? Is that the way you operate on a daily basis in your own words?
100%. I kind of have like a general outline of what I want to get done, but the consistency or the being meticulous part is in the detailed work. And so, as far as, let's just say, what I do in terms of client relationship, if I make a certain number of phone calls, reaching out to prospective businesses, just following up, just engaging, the numbers speak from themselves of either just the callbacks, the turnaround times, I always say everything's a numbers game. Shout outs to Rashad Parker.
Shoddy.
Quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, when I'm telling him to pass me the ball. But,
the Michael Jordan quote that we all love, right?
Yeah. I felt over and over in my life, but that's why I succeed, because, you get up and you go again. It is a direct correlation. I make a set number of calls per day. I try to book a number of appointments to meet with potential business owners to, not only learn about their business, but see how I could be a fit. And, if I do the detailed work in finding the right individual that has, the right kind of business for what we do locally, a lot of the times they are the right fit, and even before, pen comes to paper and we sign a deal, I show them everything under their hood with the same expectation of them showing me everything under their hood. It's not just advertising dollars with what I do. These are mutual partnerships. Like, I'm choosing to work with you. And so I want to know specifically how I can help, and how do you do what you do, and why you're as good as what you do, and why you're the best, and or why are you a cool person. But that helps me paint the picture, kind of how detailed my mind is for when I meet someone else that, I can meet several different people that speak differently and be able to still provide value for what you do to all of them based on my full understanding of what you do. And so
that skill set, that sales dynamic, I've been in the sales and mortgage business in particular for almost 20 years now, and I talk a lot about as a leader, right, the importance of really understanding everybody's different, and you can talk a lot, but you got to listen more, and you got to observe more, and you're really trying to understand what the need is, and also what the strengths are of anyone that you're working with,
right,
regardless of the relationship. I've always attributed my time as an athlete and my the lessons I learned from the coaches that created a lot of the ways of operating as a key part of just how I think and operate. And that includes being a part of a team where you're dealing with a whole bunch of guys that, you have these things in common, but you're all different, and you all have different skill sets. And, been around great coaches, been around some coaches that did things that I didn't think were great. But, my mind always operates around that.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're looking at your business today, you were prepped for that. I mean, you learned how to succeed in that environment. Do you, when you kind of operate in the business space, do you find yourself having these moments where you're doing something and the connection to kind of why you do it is it brings you back to a moment in a gym with something a coach said, or
all
something
of the time.
Like
all of the time. I only my only analogies to people usually are basketball related, or like, where did you, I know the first time I was doing interviews, tell me about this part of your life. It definitely was basketball related. As you were mentioning that, I think there's a direct tie to how do I mold myself, or how can I be a fit to someone else? Well, I got that on the basketball court. In college, Rashad Parker, DeMario Sims, Sean Park, for example, are three high-level guards that know how to score.
Studs, great
and
guys.
Yeah, and studs for sure. But if I'm that fourth guy, we're all wanting the same thing. Well, how about I screen for all three of you guys? And if I get all three of you guys open, not only will I put you guys in a good position, but if my man comes and helps you, well, then you'll have to give me the ball next. And so, like, hey, I can maybe not be as, the guy in one particular part, but me doing my part here, I might get it, on the back end, or I might be able to succeed in a different way. And so I think, in college, I kind of figured that out in a sense of managing the relationships and, other guys having expectations. Well, hey, let me get them their shine and let me have them, 100% be their best form, and I can make a change to figure out how I fit, or we can fit to still get the same common goal.
Well, now that we had a little break and our executive producer was expressing her displeasure with my form of asking questions as well as my repeated tapping of the couch, we'll get back on track. We were getting into preparation, which I think is a really cool conversation, and off camera we were having a cool conversation about it. But preparation for athletes, preparation in life, right, is a key thing. But in sports in particular, there's two things on this conversation I want to ask you and have you go into. One, preparation on a personal level, your skill set, prepping before you shoot, prepping before you catch, your overall individual performance, and then there's preparation as far as scouting reports and knowing what your approach is to attack an individual, what you want to take away. Would love to have you kind of talk about your mindset and some of the stuff that we did at Chico, because I got great stories that I know that will come up here. So you fire off, man.
Yeah, definitely. Starting off with preparation as a player, when you and I linked together, I think for me as a basketball player, it was my prep work with my base, my feet, stepping in my shot firm, not hard feet, but firm feet is kind of what I call it. And it starts in a full energy motion from your base on up. So I think as a player, you and I worked on that with shooting. But shout outs to you and the rest of the coaching staff at Chico State. I think our team preparation was some of the best. Depending on the game, who had the scout, like you guys had, we had really good film work, on Mondays through Wednesdays. The pregame speeches were phenomenal. You guys had some of the best ones. The carrots. I mean, Coach Haley. I don't know if you were with the Coach Haley.
Hales, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Hales is hilarious.
The best pregame speeches, but simple stuff. I think what helped me excel as a player with that was just trying to, it's kind of a game of memorization, and knowing who's left hand, who's right hand. I would start there. Who had some of my favorite numbers, whether it was 15, 23. I could remember that scouting report second. But then, locking in on how we're going to guard non-shooters versus shooters. And so when you have all of that preparation in real time, the preparedness makes the game easy. Then you got to actually remember it, and then you got to actually apply it and do it. And so, when it came down to our team, I always remember our three main emphasis were defending the three-point shot, rebounding, and offensively turning the ball over, where I think in those three categories alone made up 75% of our wins if we outdid that with the other team. The variables in that of more wins and or, the tougher and more talented teams came with our scouting reports. How many more possessions can I get the shooter to go over the top, I follow, us give a slight hedge, and then recover maybe to a non-shooter, or, pick your poison. What could we give up in this possession? And so, what made us really good, and I think what makes Chico State really good today, is their preparation, both defensively, offensively, but, being meticulous in every single part of the floor. And all five guys, are actually the whole team, buying into that.
Yeah, buy-in's a key thing, and that's a conversation that we could sit and listen to Coach Clink talk about, ad nauseum, and probably be on the edge of our seat, jacked up. But I think the thing with coaching and leadership that's really an art that I love personally is the thought process of what it is you're doing when you're preparing. Right, it's usually complex. Right, you're analyzing a lot of information, a lot of data, but and that is all to help lead you towards some sort of a conclusion or an idea or what your approach is. But you can't keep it complex. You then have to convert that into simple, actionable, rememberable things, right? If you're feeding a player 20 things, odds are you're not. You mentioned applying it and actually executing it. The if I'm thinking about 10 things, I'm going to screw up the fact that it's 10. So, I know when I got married and my kids, my son jokes with me all the time, Dad, why is everything a lesson and why do you repeat yourself all the time? And it makes me laugh. And I'm like, part of that is, hey, I'm going to take whatever it is, simplify it down to a memorable saying that when you are doing 12 things in the middle of a live competitive situation, your brain can remember that one simple thing and you can execute it.
Yeah.
And, like we talked about your feet and your preparation,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you probably got sick of hearing me talk about it because it was every single rep. But the idea is to get to the point where all you're thinking about is your feet, prep, and then everything else takes over.
Yeah.
But I found after I got out of coaching, I got a lot of crap from my kids and my wife and how repetitive I am.
Yeah. And I was going to say, not sick of it. I actually heard it every time. So, shot goes in or shot goes out. Amir, feet weren't right. Amir, left, right. It puts that bug in. So, like, again, that voice in your head, now I start being aware of it. Now I start picking it up. And before, maybe the next one you'd say Amir and I'd cut you off and be like, feet weren't set.
Yep.
And then that's when you can kind of sit back and be like, all right, he's got it. And it's like, that's the start of it. I started kind of grinning and chuckling because it made me think of a San Francisco State scout we had. And I know it was Coach Cobb's scout and James Albright. And so, you think of something simple, and his was all bright, all right. I guess he wasn't really effective going left. And so, part of our pre-games at Chico, when the coaches go over it, you'd either I felt like you picked 3 people before every game. It was maybe a captain or a leader, so their voice could be in there, he could be engaged. 2 would be your iffy guy, and your 3rd would be like the guy who always messes up. But, I remember the tone in the room being like, can we count on this guy tonight? And so I won't name someone by name, but I detected that because, certain people would get called out in the pregame. And so with Cobb's scout that night, he said, tell me something about James Albright. And I totally froze up in the moment. And I'm like, Albright? All right. And I remember seeing DeMario Sims kind of give me the look like, come on, man. But I was right. And then Coach Cobb was like, got it. And I was sitting here, fist pump, laughing. And we had an inside joke behind that.
The corniness and the cheesiness component, as much as it is, it's still, it has a purpose, right? It's memorable, simple. Yeah,
and we were prepared. We would do the film in the on the closest side to the locker room in the big gym where we'd have the projector and we'd all sit in chairs and you'd make different guys go over the scouting report. Hey, you read a line or you read your matchup. We always read our matchup. And so there's a few guys even now. I ran into a guy at Sports Court maybe a month after we had last saw each other, and we introduced to each other. We introduced ourselves, and the guy gave me his last name, and I remember he told me he played at East Bay, and he said his jersey number. I might have asked him. I was like, 34? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I remember you. And I don't remember his game at all. I just remember I had to guard him. He was my matchup, for that night in the scouting report. So to be honest, there's a lot of guys in the CC2A. If you played forward, I definitely remembered you because I studied your scouting report. And so when I was definitely on the bench, I would come and watch you play. I got to watch Jordan Lawley. I remember you as a player. You were very meticulous in your footwork, and to see it translate as a trainer now, and you probably being able to break that down to kids, no wonder you're successful, man. So, shout out to him.
The minutia on that is cool, and that you totally just triggered a couple memories for me. One, I think, focus on the show a lot is to translate a lot of how leadership and mentality kind of not only translates to life, but just the ways that it correlates in ways that aren't always necessarily relatable to people or connectable. But leadership as a whole and how to affect guys is something that we're all growing and learning. I don't care how good of a leader you are, you can always be better. And I know for me, and Coach Clink can attest to this, when I was a player, I wasn't a rah-rah guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much analytical and lead by example, and had to find my voice with it. And as a coach, I could get fired up and be inspirational in that lane, but having to do scouting reports where we would have themes and all that was new, and it was fun. Cobby was, Cobby always he had that deal. He'd been
Yeah.
around Gus, and so there was some funny ones. And Clink was always great at it. So, I had to kind of find a way to do it. I remember one of the games I went and bought a sheriff's badge and did a whole thing, and I was like, that was totally not my jam before. But I loved the scouting report concept of like designing. For me, I would look at everything, watch film, look at the stats, and essentially go, I want to find 3 things that I'm most key in on as either their strength that we need to impact, their weakness that we want to force them into, and then flip that as to where are our weaknesses and our strengths that we can manipulate the scenario.
Right.
And the beauty with coaching and really getting to know your guys is how it builds, like in any project where you start to get this growing sense of all this knowledge comes in.
Yeah.
And what I always to this day look at Coach Clink and respect and appreciate is that is only as enjoyable and as much fun as it was for me at Chico, and as successful if the culture of the guys that you bring in
100%
are legitimately committed to trying to do what you described, right? Like the scouting, there's plenty of programs, and I've been a part where the scouting reports could just be burned, and they would not know the difference. Like you could do the test where you go and quiz the guy. Did you read it? Ask them questions, and they didn't read it.
Yeah.
You guys wanted to be great, and for me, one of the things that I remember when we went and played San Bernardino early, Jay Flores, MVP of the conference, right? And DeMario was a stud all-conference player, and all you guys. I remember watching that film, and on several occasions, just looking and going, we cannot guard them. Like going down the line 1 through 5 from Kwame, all those guys, and no knock on our team, but being real.
No, individually we didn't have
them
that.
one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the office with Coach Clink watching, and I kept saying, we can't guard him. And Coach eventually going, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, we got to play zone. Like, because I was looking at the stats.
Right.
And their shooting percentages weren't that bad, but what you could see on film was that all of their makes were off of live dribble one-on-one skill. None of them were catch and shoot guys. So it was, this thing. And I remember at that point going, well, we don't play zone. And Coach Clink having the kind of, not only character and strength, but being like, yo, like, let's go teach it. Like he's not too proud to be like, yo, Phil, put it in, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And we go down to San Bernardino, and you had a great game in this game, but I remember we started in man. We taught zone all week.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate. I played for Coach Tarkanian, so I learned the zone really, really well, the amoeba.
Yeah.
And we went down like 20-2 or 20. I mean, we were getting busted
at
Bernardino.
Okay.
In man, and then we called a timeout, and we're like, we're going zone, and then we ended up beating them by 20.
Yeah. I kind of remember that.
And then we never lost to him from there. But for me, that was like just as a coach, the ability to go like, I got it. Now I'm giving our guys the chance to go be successful. But that piece, and when you talk about leadership and buy-in and coaching, you have to have a group of guys that are bought in and are going to do the things within that scouting report that are going to make a difference. And I look at that collectively and go, Coach Clink, and the way that he led the program, the way that he empowered, me to create a plan, and then we taught it, and then you guys going, this is different, but we're all in on it. Yeah. And you blew. I don't remember what the numbers were, but you had a fantastic game, and when you look at the ability to adapt in life, I think a lot of what you can learn in sports is like, hey, what are the things I'm good at? Right. Highlight those, and what are the things I'm weak at? And you need confidence to kind of consistently say, I'm going to look myself in the mirror and beat myself up, like critique the things I'm not good at. A lot of guys in your position, when we met as a sophomore, wouldn't have developed if they weren't willing to go, I'm not very good at this. Like, you were willing to listen to me tell you, dude, you need to not put the ball on the deck and dribble back. You just need to be a 1-2 dribble right now. Yeah. Make your move simple, because you'll be successful. You don't need more than that. You could have looked at it and taken it personal and been like, no, what are you talking about, coach? And it's not that you couldn't do it. It's just percentage of success was greater. And the fact that you then did it and then delivered success and then had said, I'm going to go develop that other part is, I'm sure something right now you're translating into your professional career as well. But I enjoyed that so much. It was a big point of pride to watch you have the humility to be like, all right, I'm going to do it.
It was
and
fun.
go out
Man.
and dominate.
What helped with that too is, the added part to that is you showed me. I don't know if we played ones, or I don't know if we were just both on the court and you showed me, 1-2 dribble, or maybe you put me through it. Why don't you score out of this one dribble right here? And you basically showed me in my base. Like, you see how much more powerful it was. And I think I remember kind of watching you, 6'7" guard, go 1 to 2 dribbles, get a lot of lift off your shot, and it looking like cash. And, if something looked good for me, I guess, the younger Amir wanted things to look good. And so, like, if me seeing you, get the lift off, I was like, oh, that could be a dope clip if I learn how to do that. And so, kind of just sticking with that.
Being able to do it, everything I learned, goes back to, I was only able. We had 2 years together. I had 1 year with John Welch, who was one of the most legendary workout guys at the NBA and pro level. And
yeah,
as a high school player, I could shoot, and I was skilled, but I did not understand angles. I did not understand how to be physical attacking the basket.
Yeah.
It's just skill and height.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1 year, I learned so much. And what he beat me up, and he was much older than I was when we were working together. And every time I would drive, he'd literally throw me into the walls if I didn't learn to attack.
Yeah.
And being able to work with someone and see it, obviously it helps.
Mm-hmm.
But when you realize that what you see on highlight reels, like the TikTokification, the Instagram, the YouTube, right? The highlight reels that kids see,
mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, Kobe Bryant, who you mentioned, Michael Jordan, it's all about, like, do basic fundamentals. Like, you don't, all that other highlight stuff comes with your natural and athletic ability, but if you can be a master of a jab step cross, and a pull-up jump shot, guess what? Like, all the other stuff happens instinctively. But if you can't do that, you're not going to be good at the other stuff. And I think as a coach, being able to reach kids on that level is the first place to build a base. And it's fun to hear you talk about it now, because you're doing that, and you're doing the same. I hear the same thing in your voice when I look at why I was so inspired to want to work and share that wisdom with you guys.
And you showed me angles as well. So as soon as you mentioned John Welsh with the angles, it's like I actually remember you showing me that going baseline as well. So shout outs to you. Another guy I really want to give credit to that does not get nearly the credit he deserves is Gilbert Arenas. He was on NBA.com doing blogs back then in 2009, and I'm a huge basketball fan. I used to read all of them, but I remember, I still listen to his pod to this day and recommend anybody that wants to learn behind the mind of a lethal scorer, how to score. Like, the information is there, but he used to have those summers.
He's intelligent and he's wild. I watched the
and like the funny side. That's the part I learned of, like, hey, I was not at that level. When your talent exceeds your behavior, you let it slide. I was never that talented, so I couldn't go full tilt Gilbert there. But his 100,000 shots in a summer, that goes back to the summers I would get up my shots, because I watched, and he had video clips of him putting in the work. And then that following season, you see him shooting the Steph and Dame shots we see today with the look arounds with his hands up. But Gilbert Arenas being very meticulous in his work as well. So I actually wanted to mention that, because, man, that something sparked when you said that. He doesn't get the credit he deserves when it comes to meticulous development of, hey, this is a skill set I can build. Let me just pump in the hours, and then I can bring it into my game, because I'm putting in those hours for the rhythm, but now I also have installed confidence to then apply it.
Yeah, well, and confidence is a product of a couple things that I have personally latched onto over the years with my experience. I brought that to to our time at Chico and as a coach, and Coach Clink had a big influence on me. I think, as a player, you develop confidence, real confidence, not, kind of the bravado component, based on reps. And, putting in the work to where, like, I can believe the shot's going in because I put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's really important, and life has changed a lot. The sports world's changed as far as how coaches interact with players, but confidence comes from external influence because we can believe that we're good, but it takes others believing in us to really validate that what we believe, can now come to fruition, right? Because as long as it's in our head and we put the work in, if we don't get given the opportunity and we don't see that, we might still be confident, but when you talk about really excelling, so when I look at the my own experience, I had coaches that beat me down, and I had coaches that built me up. And as a leader, my entire career, I've focused on the best that you can get out of people is to build them up and instill confidence, and then you can hold them accountable.
Yeah.
When they're not living up to the standard for their own best interest. Do you think when you kind of see the evolution of coaching today, do you think it's gone too far in a good way, or in a bad way, as far as like maybe there isn't enough adversity, there isn't enough confronting on that side versus like being kind of the old school Bobby Knight kind of beat you down mentality? I feel like it maybe has gone a little bit too far and there's not enough of the real talk. Be curious what your take is.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I just got back into coaching, I want to say in November, and it probably dawned on me, in real time this past April that I think my first month in coaching, I've always heard so many people tell me about how their games are going and, we have this big ref problem, which there is a shortage of refs. That's factual.
For sure.
But to see
not
it.
Not a glamorous job.
Yeah, to see it, I was like, oh, wow. I really did have great officials when I played. I'm not critiquing the refs of today. I kind of thought, what happened to those refs? Well, they're now doing Division I and, some are in the NBA now. But, where was that build up before? What dawned on me in April was we need more hoopers, giving back to the game.
Sharing the knowledge.
I didn't realize how much of a drop off. I had great influential coaches. If you were to ask me who are my two most influential coaches, I would say Coach Fred Wilson at Indercombe High and you, because you both built me up as a player and gave me that confidence, that last push of hey, I see what you can become. Now let's get to work. And the I see you was enough for me as a young kid that got me in the gym, and the rest is history there. But I'm challenging all my former teammates or anybody I played with, man, if you have a son and they're in basketball, not only do you get that dad time, and I get not wanting to cross that, but you guys owe it to these next players to give everything to them. Basketball has done wonders for me, and I would not have been in this position I am if it wasn't for you. If it wasn't for Coach Fred, if it wasn't my hard Coach Formaker being different and firm, and Coach Bray as well, but it being that push I needed because I wanted to be coached and I wanted to play the game, these kids don't have that same thing. I think these kids nowadays, and it's not their fault, the culture has changed and it's a different time. They're not put nearly in as many adverse situations as we had before. And we could point the finger all the way around. If we're talking amateur basketball, I think the AAU model has become saturated. And so there's some great teams and great programs and people doing it the right way. But there are some recreational teams saturating what competitive basketball is. Or there could be that disgruntled father or mother that says, hey, we're going to take you and form our own team. And so now we have diluted talent from once was a competitive team to now we have half of that comp playing on two teams, where now we're like an amateur and less competitive model. And so, kind of putting that full circle of where I think we're at, I think we deserve to still be honest to these kids. It is up to them to see the fine lining within it. And, I think they definitely need to watch more basketball to kind of see the truth.
Yeah, they don't watch basketball like we did.
There's plenty of distractions between social media. Parents play they get in the way. I was talking to a good coach, and you can call him a competitor in my field, and we were rambling off amongst parents, in that culture. And I kind of told him what I saw in real time is my team was getting beat by 30 today. Parents rooting for, hey, do this. And now, I have my player, when I call his name and when you call his name, who does he turn to first in the game? That was never
agendas.
Yeah. And I had a fun conversation with my friends who played collegiate sports in different fields, and they both said, I never had my parent, tell me, oh, you need to talk to the coach. You better figure that out. Yeah. You better figure it out yourself, or go to your coach and ask your coach.
Go to your coach and have the conversation.
And we laughed, as grown adults now, because the commonality that led to us playing collegiately was that our parents did get in the way. Our mom and dad was mom and dad, and loved us regardless of whether we were good at a sport or not. When we maybe didn't agree with the coach, they directed us and told us, hey, that is your coach. So if you have a problem with him or with someone, approach them and address the problem. And so also be open. Also be open to knowing you're not always right, and that you still have room to grow, or you need to work on something.
See, that's with parents. You're not just competing to get your kid the exact thing that you want him to have as far as playing time, shots, whatever it is in that moment. What you're trying to enable them to do is to understand how to deal with authority, influence, and coaches, and the right way to deal with a conflict or a lack of understanding and not achieving whatever their current goal is, right? So if I'm not doing what it is that I want, or I'm not playing as much as I want, mom and dad sitting there and berating that the coach is not doing this and that isn't going to help that kid figure out how to overcome that in the future when mom and dad aren't there to basically coddle and tell them, hey, it's the coach's fault. What you need as a parent to teach them is, all right, you want a different outcome. Here are the ways that you can approach that authority figure, that coach, to give yourself an opportunity to change that, right? So they're obsessed with the outcome, not with the lesson when they make a mistake. And I totally agree. That is the thing I wish all parents would understand. And, and the fact is, as a guy that coaches my kids most of the time don't want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah. Oh, if it's coming from mom and dad, it's not getting
It's usually not good, right? So you are just a cheerleader.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I think the thing that lacks sometimes with coaches that I've always admired Coach Clink for this, and a slew of other coaches, that if you want to be hard on a kid, meaning coach a kid hard and really challenge a kid, you have to care about that kid. You have to 100%. Care about that guy, and you can't fake it. Yeah. Like, you would have known if I didn't really care about you, or I didn't really believe in you. Just like all of you guys would have known if Coach Clink didn't. You really have to invest that. If you do that, and as a guy who's playing, and I remember that Coach Clink could say anything he wanted to me because I knew he cared about me. So challenge me. I know you want the best for me. If you're playing for a guy and you don't think he cares about you, when they say stuff, you aren't going to want to listen the same way because you don't know that they're really looking out for your best interest. Right. So I think that as long as coaches are willing to put that first, then the outcome to be hard on a guy or a gal, whatever, exists in the same way it's always. But I think the thing that I've seen that is maybe just because of the population growth that diluting of sports is that there are a lot of coaches that are involved in coaching that don't care about the kids that they're actually coaching. So that's where it kind of the line, either they don't actually challenge them, they just feed them what they want to hear because they truly aren't invested in it. Yeah. And that's what, to me, the success we had at Chico, the success Coach Clink has continued to have in that program as it's changed, comes back to that he's always cared about his guys legitimately, so collectively everybody can buy in. Right. And that's the success you'll see at all the big programs. And I want to, as we're talking about that, I want to highlight the fact that your progress as a guy, that when we go back to your sophomore year and we started working together and you were competing for a starting spot, you were competing for minutes. You ended up becoming an all-conference player. You ended up winning award after award. Had a career at Chico that was, not just memorable, but was, historic in terms of the wins and the programs. And you had a lot of great guys around you. And then you went on to have a professional career that's led to you here. I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that journey as you finished up your Chico State and you ended up what was it like playing overseas? Where, you know, talk about some of the places you played, and you know, that is a gap that
Yeah.
you have to bridge between now and what you're up to today.
Yeah. I mean, after that sophomore year, you know, Jay Flores as a senior gets MVP. I believe Kyle Baxter graduated that same year too.
Another Sacto kid.
Those were, yeah, El Camino.
Yeah.
Those were both guys that I reached out to. Like, I remember San Bernardino Scout as a junior. I'm in the van on the way to the game. I think I'm DMing Kyle Baxter on Twitter, asking him how is it in France. He's playing in France, Jay's playing in Mexico, but I'm already picking their brain of what's that next step like. What are you preparing for? What's the difference now? I had that in my feeling. I remember Kyle Baxter. We probably had just left the hotel and got on the freeway, but he was like, "Wait, that was just your sophomore year?" And he says, you know, "Dude, just relax. Like, you got plenty of ball. Like, you'll make it pro, no doubt," or something like that. You know, it only took me to hear that once for me to then not be full of myself and get back to work. You know.
Back to the process.
You walked in just like, "Hey, you're a really good player. Like, here's what you need to work on." Or Coach Fred, like, "Man, you got potential. Here's what you need to work on." Cool. The idea is there. So now how do we build it? And so going into, I had asked Rod Hawkins when he graduated why he didn't go play pro. And I asked Mario Sims why he didn't go pro. And what I had gotten from collectively everybody with that question was, if you want to go pro, you got to be 100% in.
Mm-hmm.
You can't half step. So it started, you know, in my mind mentally, are you ready for this? This is what you've dreamed about. And, you know, you see everyone has different pathways and everyone has different experiences. What happens if you're in that third world country, not being paid, not, you know, away from your family, not getting the playing time you want? Are you still going to put the work in the same? Are you still going to love it the same? And it was 100% yes. And so that summer, you know, I played the 5 spot my senior year, you know, similar comp to like a Draymond Green. And I remember losing. I lost 23 pounds going into my rookie season as a shooting guard, and a complete positional change. You know, the coaches had asked me, you know, "You played the position before?" And I was like, "Absolutely." You know, they didn't know I last played it when I was 7 years old, but we had work to do, watching a lot of film, watching a lot of, you know, Kobe tapes in my rookie season of like, let me find a guard who's dominated their position. And this is a piece of advice I always tell, you know, my young guys is, if you want something in life and someone has been in that position, if you have the ability to ask them, how did they get there? Ask them. But, you know, again, what's the excuse when we have a cell phone? All of the information is there. And so, you know, I began meticulously breaking down what I needed to know, how I needed to guard. How did, you know, I'm watching NBA basketball. How does Clay complement Steph? How does, you know, I think Ronnie Brewer is one of the better shooting guards ever. You know, you got to play with Deron Williams and you got to play with Derrick Rose, where those guys are the star guys and he's probably guarding the other matchup or the other star guard that night.
Yep.
But really
playing his role.
Yeah, really offset playing that role. And so, you know, starting at a new level, again, kind of going back to college, starting at, let me get 2 wins a day. I came in humble of, I just have work to do. And so, you know, from my vets, Chase Griffin, Ahmad Smith, Donald Lawson, plenty of days and nights picking their brain about the professional ranks and how to not only survive, how to thrive, and learning their work ethics and their how did they approach the game. I just took details of just knowing I didn't know it all, and took it day by day. And, you know, anytime I had a mismatch or an opportunity, I just took advantage of it. You know, when we're talking about my rookie season as a pro being 205 now and not, I think, the 228 I was at Chico, you know, you could push me just a little bit when I dribble the ball and I'd go flying over. I challenge you to go look at those first 10 games. I'm on the floor, you know, rail thin in my athletic prime. But that following season, I was like, nobody's going to touch me and I fall down on the ground anymore. Like, I'm going to add strength to my game. Going into my second season, we had an injury at the point guard position where our starting point guard was out. And so our 2 guard moved to the 1. I was a 3-man. I moved to the 2. And when the 2 guard went for a sub, I became the team's point guard. And, limited minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of a game at point guard. But I remember that week, we had to drill it in practice. And that 2 guard, who was an American, had to guard me. So we do the full court drill, make a move. And I'm teaching my freshmen this in real time now of how to bring the ball up the court. No 2 dribbles are the same. Don't let them, clock your pace. And my coach, shout out to Michael Claxton, kept it real simple. He's like, dude, you're a big guard. Just be Magic Johnson. It doesn't have to be
your body.
Turn your back, and if you need to post up from full court to get the ball half court, do so. And even my rookie season, I saw that when we were doing pick and rolls, I might have a 6'1" guy guarding me, but I'm looking directly over him, and I'm able to throw the ball over the top to the other side. And I'm like, that's a strength, Came in as a 3-2 and realized at the 2, I'm the biggest, lengthiest guy. I'm going to be physical, and I'm going to be long in my play. Like finding your strength and sticking to it. When it comes to basketball, again, kind of, what's the tip there to any player coming up? Figure out your strength and just play to your strength. When it comes to business, I think I communicate well, and I have a fair assessment on understanding people. And so I just try to better understand and to better, if I'm meeting with a guy I have no business with helping, I'll be nice, but I'll wrap up the meeting. I don't want to waste your time, and I don't sell water to a well. And plenty of times just inside conversations where I'll be like, oh, I know a guy. You should call this guy because he could help what you're doing. And, for me, that feels like a cool win, but it's just also just knowing my place and where I'm at.
That goes to the type of character that you've always had, and you
Thanks,
are
man.
as fun-loving and as easygoing of a guy as there is, mixed in with a competitor. Before we kind of wrap on this, do you find anything right now with your up and coming coaching stint that has surprised you, or kind of put you in a position where you're like, yeah, I wasn't anticipating that. I know we talked about potentially coaching the know-it-alls that don't want to hear it, but
Yeah.
anything else that's caught you off guard, or anything you're really, really enjoying?
You kind of said it earlier, in regards to Coach Clink, of when you're coaching, the player has to know that you truly care. When I coach, it comes with a lot of context. It comes with a lot of experience. And so, in my mind, when I'm training or when I'm coaching, I'm thinking the person I'm talking to has seen behind my eyes and has seen everything that I've gone through. And so, sometimes in real time, even, after the fact or even in the moment, I kind of laugh because I want that connection or that instruction to happen right away. And life just doesn't go like that. Like, it takes time. Sometimes, I guess, when it comes to the caring part, I care, but it's that kid has just met you. And so there's time there that you have to build in terms of trust, or even the parent, and I think time heals all. And, I love the seeds we've already planted, and I love where we're going. It's just been very humbling and enjoying. It's been a joyful moment to just see that, a year from now where said player will be, or a year from now where the team will be, it'll be aligned, or maybe, one day their eyes will open and they see what I see, just in the same sense of when you first showed me footwork and then I got it, So that's been probably the thing that also is it excites me when it excites me, and it allows me to come into work the next day, guns blazing, ready to go, because it's like, hey, here's another day where we get the opportunity to do that. And it's, at the end of the day, it's just basketball. When it comes to basketball, right, I'm back in the gym, just like the little 5-year-old kid at Allen Witt Park, who's now in his 30s, showing this next 5-year-old, or even showing a guy I played varsity with his child. Now I'm training him. And so it's fun to go through the journey, another time around. It's almost like reincarnation.
Reconnecting to that thing.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the birth of this show for me, right?
Yeah.
Revisiting that, and that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I'm so proud of not only the career that you had and the person that you are, but watching you and your business ventures and the success and the fact that you're giving back. And so I'm really, really grateful that you took the time today, man. And I'm looking forward to being able to share more of the upcoming projects we got going on.
Yeah.
And for everybody that's paying attention, definitely I want to give you an opportunity to continue to shout out on the mag and what you're doing there, man.
Yeah, the Natomas local, keep it positive, shop local, stay social is just a motto we live by. Residents come together to tell positive stories and just to connect with one another. And we're a lot more common than you think. And so, whether you're a resident that is really good in photography or you have a card hobby that, you collect cards or coins, we want to know about it. If you live in Natomas, I'm not hard to find. Just type in the Natomas local or Amir Carraway. Would love to connect with you. And if you're a local business, just looking to just engage with more of our residents, we can help in that department too. So the Natomas local, here in Natomas in Sacramento, California, that's what we're doing. And then just another plug for Touch Shooting. I'm wearing a shirt now with Touch Outreach and Development. We go into neighborhoods and host free clinics for just local kids, giving back to the community. We use basketball as a tool or the connection in between, but we have workshops, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's affirmations, whether it's goal setting, whether it's character building, and just being, a good person overall. We have a lot of those coming in stores. Touch Shooting off of Sunrise in Rancho Cordova. Ryan Sipkins, the CEO founder, one of my best friends in high school teammates. We're really just trying to establish a presence in Sacramento, California through the game of basketball as well as the game of life. And not only in Sacramento, nationwide and globally. So be on the lookout for that, Touch Shooting and Touch Outreach and Development.